Anderson the Spider Silva. What is going on, my MMA Boxing Addicts family? It is Saturday morning. Judgment Day has officially surpassed us, and we have got our boxing results. Jake Paul, yes, has a broken jaw, was absolutely beat down by Anthony Joshua last night live on Netflix. But I want to start off by saying I do give my respects to Jake Paul for stepping into the ring, for getting dropped but still getting up, showing heart. There was many times in that fight where if Jake Paul wanted to, he could have quit. He could have easily just gave up, right? The first knockdown could have just stopped right there. But proved to us he had heart, he had determination. He came in there, he wanted to win the fight. I'll give him respect for that. But what I won't give him respect for was the game plan. The game plan and the shot taking, the doubles, the singles that Jake Paul was trying to implement in this fight against Anthony Joshua. While watching this fight, I said, Jake Paul is doing the Devin Haney. Yup. Jake Paul was doing the Devin Haney. Devin Haney specifically when he fought against Jose Ramirez. The other fight, Devin Haney is a completely different fighter. But that is the fight that I was comparing Jake Paul to, because Jake Paul was absolutely running. I give him respect for stepping into the ring, but I do not give him respect for that boxing technique, that style, the movement that he was using, because it was pure El Gallo running movement. That was not boxing, my people. That was not boxing. If the fight would have continued like that, Jake Paul would have got his praise. He probably, I don't know, would have won the fight. Who knows, for just dodging and moving. But it still was a Devin Haney performance. We seen with Devin Haney, the ridicule that he got after he fought against Jose Ramirez. Jake Paul was implementing that in the fight with Anthony Joshua. But who can judge him? The guy's half his size. Anthony Joshua is an Olympic gold medalist, two-time former unified heavyweight champion. Jake Paul could not stand there and strike with a man like that. So what did he do? He put on his track shoes and went running. He had no chance in the fight. Yes, he landed a couple left hooks, a couple right hooks every now and then. But these were, in my opinion, surviving shots. He was not in there to fight to win. He was in there to try to survive, my friends. And Anthony Joshua goes in there, holds down the integrity of boxing. He did it against Francis Ngannou, ex-UFC heavyweight champion, and now has did it to Jake Paul, a guy who has came into the sport and tried to absolutely change everything. I respect him for stepping in that ring. Don't like the game plan, but it is what it is, my friends. It's over. Jake Paul has suffered a broken jaw. The problem is he wasn't slept. I don't know if this loss is really gonna impact Jake Paul mentally. He might use this as fuel. He might just say, I was landing shots on an Olympic gold medalist. I survived 6 rounds, longer than Otto Wallen did, than other heavyweights did with Anthony Joshua. Therefore, that makes me really good. Therefore, I could go to these lower weight classes now and compete with some of the best in the world because I just competed with a heavyweight. That is what Jake Paul is going to be using to sell his next couple fights. Now we know he is going to take a break for sure. I think it's going to be a 1-year break, but it is going to be interesting to see if Jake Paul ever returns to the sport of boxing. Come back to the cruiserweight division. He was wow undersized to be able to take on somebody like Anthony Joshua. Congratulations. Shout out to Joshua for holding the integrity of boxing down. And shout out to Anderson the Spider Silva. A toe tap, right uppercut, knockout win against Tyrone Woodley was one of the absolute greatest things that it could have ever happened to the GOAT. A lot of people thought that it was possible Anderson the Spider Silva at 50 years old was not going to be able to get done against somebody who's younger. I did not see that at all. I did my research on the fight. I broke down these fighters. We made our predictions. We seen that Anderson the Spider Silva is 100 times better than Tyron Woodley. What does he do? The first round, I was nervous. I was like, come on, Anderson, you ain't throwing no punches, bro. Tyron Woodley was just flicking them out there, not landing anything clean, but Anderson was still being gun shy. I said, this better not be one of those type of fights. I thought Woodley was the gun shy fighter, which we've seen in a lot of his fights, not Anderson. So the second round comes. Anderson looking like the absolutely bigger man in that ring. He looked like he should have been in a different weight class than Tyron Woodley. Tyron Woodley coming off filming a movie was big for nothing. The way Anderson the Spider Silva knocked out Tyron Woodley by doing a little toe tap, boom. Talk about one of the greatest combat fighters of all time. Some of the greatest highlights in the UFC from 2006 to 2013, right? One of the greatest fighters of all time, having defended his time 10 consecutively times in a row, having had a win streak in the UFC that still stands at 16 fights in a row, to coming into the sport of boxing, beating a WBC middleweight champion of the world, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., beating Tito Ortiz, coming in here and doing what you did to Tyron Woodley, tap, uppercut, boom. Anderson the Spider Silva is a real life legend, a superhero, whatever you want to call him, an extraterrestrial, something that is just beyond this world, unique. We are never, ever going to see a certain type of fighter like Anderson the Spider Silva in our lives. Is that a tough take? Will we ever see an Anderson the Spider Silva again? It's absolutely amazing. We hit our bets like that last night. Anthony Joshua by KO, Anderson Silva to win the fight. He made it easier than I thought. Alycia Baumgartner goes in there in the co-main event, gets the win. Now, there's one last thing that I want to talk about. The women's boxing. We had a lot of great fights on there, a lot of women's boxing, a lot of great cards. Overall, I don't know if the 3-minute rounds that were put in this Alycia Baumgartner fight was actually it, my friends. I know, women are fighting to fight 3-minute rounds. But that fight wasn't it. Alycia Baumgartner was not letting her hands go, both of them, in the first couple rounds. It felt like because they knew that this was going to be 3-minute rounds instead of 2-minute rounds, that they had to secure their punches. They had to relax a little bit, right? To save the energy as the fight goes on in the later rounds. But because of that, it made for a more boring fight. It made for a longer fight, and it made for a boring fight. I was almost falling asleep on the couch. I had people over. People were doing things. People were busy. It was not a fight to pay attention to at all, especially after the first couple rounds. If the women want to continue to have 3-minute rounds in boxing and make these fights 2 times longer, you guys have to promise to let your hands go and make these exciting fights. Just because we've added an extra minute to the round does not mean that now, instead of throwing 200 punches around, you only got to throw 100 punches. It's already boring as it is. And that is coming from a boxing fan. People who don't watch boxing, I can't even imagine what they are thinking. So Alycia Baumgartner got the win, but it wasn't this absolutely amazing moment. She gave herself a B-, a B+ in her last fight. What did she give herself this night? An A+? I don't think so, my friends, especially when you got girls like Clarissa Shields, Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor out there holding down the women's division and putting on extremely exciting fights. That just wasn't it. Shout out to her for getting the win. I want to see if somebody and these women boxers see that, notice that, and decide to themselves, when I'm involved in a 3-minute fight, I am throwing down. It should be double amount of punches that is thrown in a regular girl fight, not the same amount. And they just added a whole 15 minutes. No, my friends. Overall, the card was absolutely good. I wouldn't say great, because I was excited all week for this card, right? Excited to see Jake Paul take on Anderson the Spider Silva. Excited to see, Jake Paul face Anthony Joshua. Excited to see Anderson the Spider Silva take on Tyron Woodley. But when you actually look at this whole card as a whole, we knew Anthony Joshua was going to KO Jake Paul. If it wasn't for Anderson the Spider Silva getting the toe tap uppercut knockout, the card, honestly, would have not been that great. It wouldn't have been that good. It would have been more on the slower, more on the boring side, especially for a Netflix card. Now, it's officially over. Judgment Day has taken place. Now we transition into Misfits Boxing with Andrew Tate versus Chase Namor. Amalvo Vargas with the most pressure on his back, having to go in there, not only represent the raza, but represent the Vargas family. Take back the comments that Dean the Great had said, tortas, burritos, tacos. Dean the Great was being one of the most disrespectful people that I have ever seen in a long time. And now, today is the day, my people. Tony Ferguson, El Kokui, Warren Spencer, Anthony Pretty Boy Taylor versus Niraj. I can't wait. Let me know who you guys think is going to win in the comments. And I'm out.